Hello, Eric Sheptuck coming at you. So, today is Monday, April 23rd, 2018. Yesterday, I attended the event with DC's Attorney General, Karl Racine, at what we call First Church. The full name is First Congregational United Church of Christ. Anyway, so I would say that Karl Racine is a really good guy. Well, he mentioned on a personal note that his elderly mother had a stroke in September of last year. So my thoughts and prayers go out to her. I hope yours do too. But he mentioned that in light of the fact that some elders don't have the supports that his mother has. So he, being the Attorney General, makes a pretty good penny. And he and his sister took care of his mother and continue to take care of her, of course. And so his mother does have certain supports that not all stroke victims or all elderly people have. And so he is doing what he can to ensure that elders and disabled people are not being taken advantage of. But also, I should point out that long-term homeless advocate Michael Stoops had a stroke in June of 2015. And for the first 6 months after his stroke, I was the primary person going to visit him. There was somebody who was actually funding me because DC Transit costs a pretty good bit, and this person was funding my transit and me being able to get food while I was going to a DC suburb called Silver Spring to see him in the nursing home. But anyway, I was spending 4 and 5 hours a day there for the first 6 months. Michael Stoops sadly did pass away on May 1st of 2017, almost 2 years after the stroke. But I understand what it's like to care for somebody who's had a massive stroke. He was a workaholic. He was found on the office floor. He might have been lying there for 12 hours before anybody found him. But that said, that's my personal bit. So back to Karl Racine. He showed a rather in-depth understanding of poverty and homelessness. He said that he took a trip to the... Oh, man! Quit calling me. I gotta... Okay, well, anyway, he took a trip to the National Building Museum, and he saw a display called Evicted, and it was really touching to him. It was a display which is based on a book, actually, and which highlights the troubles associated with evictions across America, and it showed some of the trauma. He said you should, when you go, which I'm going to try and do later on today. It is in DC, for those who don't know, the National Building Museum. But he said when you go, you should bring a tissue and a recording device. I obviously have a recording device, and I do have some tissue as well. I keep these. I go to Starbucks a lot, and I grab a few extra napkins. But anyway, he talked about how that the average age for a homeless person in the U.S. is actually 9. A lot of people figure it's right around 45 years old, but he said, you know, it's actually 9. And that's important because if you figure that the average homeless person in the U.S. is 45 years old, then you can excuse not helping them because you figure they made bad choices as an adult. You made your bed, now lie in it. But when you find out that the average age is 9, that completely changes things. A 9-year-old is not responsible for the choices they make. And I would say that even when an adult makes bad choices, that of course you want to stop them from making those bad choices. You want to stop them from living out those bad choices. But sometimes it is worth your while to help them pull themselves back up and to get back on their feet again. Especially when it comes to employers. If you say, hey, this person made so many missteps in life, I don't want to hire them, then you give them an excuse to continue committing crimes, if that is the misstep that they made. Okay, and you excuse them continuing to be homeless or what have you, if you won't hire them. So there's a point at which you have to even forgive an adult for the bad choices. But when you realize that the average age of a homeless American is 9, then that kind of commands a higher level of compassion for the homeless. So he brought that out. He also mentioned how that he's taking a compassionate approach to dealing with troubled youth. He said that he has a program that is assisting 1,750 troubled youth, and that 60% of them come from the 2 poorest wards in D.C. D.C. has 8 wards. Wards 7 and 8 are on the other side of the Anacostia River. The Anacostia River serves the same purpose as the train tracks did 100 years ago in this country. The well-to-do, the whites on one side of the tracks, the poor, the blacks on the other side of the tracks. So the Anacostia River is our present-day train track here in D.C. So he mentioned that 60% of these 1,750 troubled youth were actually from Ward 7 and 8. And when you factor in Ward 5, which is also a relatively poor ward, then that brings you to 80%. So 1,400 of the 1,750 troubled youth were from the 3 poorest wards in the city. And so he decided that they didn't need to be punished out of their troubled youth, out of committing crimes. They needed guidance, that they were living out their learned behaviors because they were living in rough neighborhoods where they had to do certain rough things in order to survive. And he understood that, and he dealt with it from that perspective, and he offered them better guidance. And he said that he didn't remove them from their neighborhoods, from their rough neighborhoods. They still live there, but they have someone they can turn to for guidance, and he's given them better coping skills. And that relates to the homeless issue as well, because many people figure that you can just disparage somebody out of homelessness. If you speak to them sharply and tell them, go get a job, then they're going to magically go get a job, But you see, many of them put in hundreds of job applications, but no employer wants to hire them. The employers are oftentimes saying, hey, look, this person made so many missteps in life. They went to jail, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, I don't want to hire them. They've got a poor work history, what have you. In many instances, actually, their work history is that they've done a lot of day labor as opposed to permanent jobs. So they've been working, but it doesn't go down on their resume as a permanent job, or long-term job, I should say. But anyway, there's a lot to be considered, but because of how understanding Karl Racine is of the issues being faced by black youth, troubled youth, I'm assuming that he'll also be understanding and compassionate toward the homeless, and he'll be willing to understand the deeper issues that face the homeless community, and we'll be able to move forward working together and creating a better path out of homelessness than what DC government, or more specifically the ICH, has afforded the homeless. And ICH stands for the Interagency Council on Homelessness. So let me say this a little bit before I close out, that DC government began to work on addressing homelessness in 2004. The ICH was formed in 2006. We had 8,253 homeless people in DC in 2004. We made a 10-year plan to end homelessness that year, and 12 years into the 10-year plan, in 2016, we had 8,350 homeless people, which is 97 more people than we started with at the beginning of the 10-year plan 12 years prior. Go figure. But that said, DC has had a very hard time of ending homelessness. There are a lot of things I could say about that as to why that is, but be that as it may, maybe Karl Racine, the Attorney General for Washington, D.C., will be able to help us chart a better path forward. I remain hopeful. Let's see what comes of it. All right. Thank you.